What would you do if the person you loved most couldn't leave the house? When 10-year-old Lucy watched her father's wheelchair break beyond repair, she made a choice that would change hundreds of lives. She walked into a biker garage with stolen tools and an offer no one expected. This is her story. Lucy Albany had learned to measure time differently than other 10-year-olds. Not by birthday parties or summer vacations, but by the sounds her father's wheelchair made. First came the squeak, a high-pitched protest from the left wheel bearing that started 6 months ago. Then the rattle, metal on metal, loose bolts that no amount of tightening could fix. And finally, 3 weeks ago, the grinding, a deep, mechanical groan that meant something inside was dying. Their apartment sat on the second floor of a building that smelled like old carpet and boiled vegetables. The elevator had been broken for 2 years. Moses spent his mornings by the window, a mug of cold coffee in his lap, watching the street below like it was a movie he couldn't pause. He used to be the kind of man who fixed everything: engines, plumbing, the neighbor's busted radio. Army mechanic, deployed twice, the guy everyone called when something needed saving. Now he couldn't even save his own mobility. The wheelchair was 7 years old. Standard VA issue, built for function, not comfort. Moses had already replaced the armrests with padded ones he'd sewn himself, reinforced the frame with spare angle iron, jury-rigged the footrest 3 times. But you can only patch something so many times before the whole structure gives up. The morning it happened, Lucy was pouring cereal when she heard the crack, sharp and final, like a bone breaking. She dropped the bowl and ran to his bedroom. Moses was on the floor, one hand gripping the bed frame, the other pressed against his lower back. The wheelchair lay on its side, the main support beam split clean through, metal edges jagged and sharp. "Dad, I'm fine." His voice was tight, controlled. The voice he used when he was absolutely not fine. Lucy knelt beside him, her hands hovering uselessly. "Should I call someone?" "Who?" He laughed, but it came out bitter. "The VA? They'll put me on hold for 45 minutes and tell me to file a form." She helped him back onto the bed, his arm heavy across her shoulders, his breathing ragged. The wheelchair stayed where it fell. Later that day, Lucy called the emergency VA line 3 times. Each time, a different voice told her the same script. Case under review, standard repair time 6 to 8 weeks. Replacement requests require supporting documentation from a physician and proof of medical necessity. "He's a veteran," Lucy said, trying to keep her voice steady. "He was hurt in Afghanistan. He can't walk." "I understand, honey, but there's a process." She hung up. That night, Moses didn't come out for dinner. Lucy made spaghetti and left a plate outside his door. In the morning, it was still there, untouched. Through the thin walls, she could hear him moving, the shuffle drag of someone crawling because there was no other option. At school, Lucy moved through her classes like a ghost, present but not really there. Her math teacher asked if everything was okay at home. Lucy said yes, because what else could she say? That her father was trapped in a 3-room apartment like a prisoner? That she'd started waking up at 2 in the morning just to check if he was still breathing? The days blurred together. Moses's beard grew scraggly and uneven. He stopped pretending this was temporary. He sat on the edge of his bed most days, staring at the broken wheelchair in the corner like it had personally betrayed him. Lucy watched him disappear a little more each day, his shoulders curving inward, his voice getting quieter. On a Friday afternoon, she walked past Barton's Hardware on her way home from school. The store had been there forever, windows cluttered with paint cans and extension cords and tool displays. She stopped. Inside, mounted on the back wall, was a pegboard full of socket sets, organized by size, gleaming under fluorescent lights. She remembered her father's tools, the ones he'd sold when the medical bills started piling up. Beautiful chrome sockets in a red metal case, each one nested perfectly in foam cutouts. He used to let her hand them to him while he worked, teaching her the names, 3/8, half-inch, metric versus standard. She walked inside. The cashier was deep in conversation with a customer about deck screws, galvanized versus stainless steel, indoor versus outdoor. Lucy's heart hammered against her ribs. She moved down the aisle slowly, casually, like she belonged there. The $20 socket set was right at eye level, small enough to fit in her backpack. Her hands were shaking when she reached for it. She didn't run. She walked out the front door, past the cashier still counting change, past the guy loading mulch into his truck. No alarms. No one shouting. Just her and the weight of what she'd done heavy in her bag. That night, Lucy lay in bed holding the stolen tools, staring at the ceiling. She knew exactly where she needed to go. The Steel Cobra's garage, the one everyone whispered about, the one with motorcycles lined up outside like metal soldiers. She'd walked past it 100 times, always on the other side of the street, always hurrying. Tomorrow she'd walk right through the front door. The morning came cold and gray, the kind that made breath visible. Lucy left the apartment before her father woke up, the socket set wrapped in an old t-shirt at the bottom of her backpack. She'd rehearsed what she would say a dozen times, but now, standing across the street from the Steel Cobra's garage, every word evaporated from her mind. The building looked worse in daylight. Sheet metal walls streaked with rust, windows so filthy they reflected nothing but grime. A hand-painted sign above the door showed a cobra wrapped around a wrench. 3 motorcycles sat in the gravel lot, chrome catching the weak morning sun. From inside came the clang of metal on metal, someone cursing, a radio playing classic rock too loud. Lucy waited. A man in a leather vest stepped out, lit a cigarette, disappeared back inside. A delivery truck rumbled in. Someone signed for parts. The truck left. Just people working. She could do this. She crossed the street before she could change her mind. The garage door stood open. Inside stretched wider than the exterior suggested. Ceiling high enough for a lift, concrete floor bearing decades of oil stains, workbenches buried under tools and engine guts. 4 men worked on different bikes, their vests all bearing the same patch. A coiled cobra, the words Steel Cobra's MC, stitched above and Riverside chapter below. The air smelled like gasoline and welding smoke. Lucy took 3 steps inside before anyone noticed her. Then everything stopped. The radio kept playing, but the tools went quiet. The men turned to stare. "You lost, kid?" The question came from the nearest one, a massive guy with a shaved head and arms like tree trunks. Lucy's voice came out smaller than she'd practiced. "I need help." The man wiped his hands on a rag, exchanged glances with the others. "This ain't a bike shop. We work on our own stuff." "I know." She pulled the socket set from her backpack and set it on the nearest workbench. Her hands were trembling. "I need someone to fix my dad's wheelchair." An older man with a gray beard and weathered face approached. His vest read Rooster above the patch. He picked up the socket set, turned it over slowly. The price sticker was still on it. "Where'd you get this?" Lucy's throat went dry. "Barton's Hardware." "You pay for it?" She shook her head, unable to meet his eyes. Rooster set the tools down carefully. His voice wasn't angry, just tired. "Why?" "Because my dad needs help and nobody will help him, and I didn't know what else to do." The words rushed out in a single breath. "He was in the army. He's a mechanic like you. He got hurt and now his wheelchair's broken and the VA says 6 to 8 weeks, but he can't wait that long. He can't even get out of bed. And I thought maybe..." Her voice cracked. She bit down hard on her lip, determined not to cry in front of these men. Rooster crouched down to her level. Up close, she could see scars on his forearms, faded tattoos, eyes that had seen things she couldn't imagine. "What's your dad's name?" "Moses Albany." Something changed in Rooster's expression. He went very still. "Moses Albany. Army mechanic." "Yes." "How old are you?" 10. Rooster stood slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. He looked at the other men. "Grizz, come here." The massive bald man walked over. Rooster kept his eyes on Lucy. "This is Moses Albany's daughter. Ring any bells?" Grizz frowned, thinking. "Albany, wait. Motor Pool Moses? The transmission guy from Salerno? That's what I'm thinking. Holy hell." Grizz looked down at Lucy with new eyes. "Your old man saved our asses more than once. Kept our convoy running when half the vehicles should have been scrapped." Rooster nodded. "Best mechanic I ever served with. Heard he got hit by an IED on his last tour. Lost track after that. Lucy felt something loosen in her chest. You knew him? Knew him? Something like a smile crossed Rooster's face. Kid, your dad taught me everything that matters about engines. 18 months in the same unit. His expression hardened. And the VA's leaving him in a broken wheelchair? They said they'd help, but it's been 2 weeks and he can't leave the apartment and I didn't know what else to do, so She gestured helplessly at the stolen tools. Rooster picked up the socket set again. All right, here's what's gonna happen. You and me are taking this back to Barton's right now. I'm paying for it, and you're apologizing to whoever's working the counter. You don't start fixing things by breaking rules. Your dad would tell you the same thing. Lucy nodded, relief and shame washing over her in equal measure. After that, Rooster continued, we're going to see your father, and we're going to figure out what he needs. You mean it? I don't say things I don't mean, he called over his shoulder. Tiny, you got that trailer hitch fixed yet? A lean man with a ponytail looked up from a bike engine. Yeah, why? We're making a house call. 20 minutes later, Lucy stood at the Barton's counter apologizing to a confused cashier while Rooster pulled out his wallet. Then they walked back to the garage, Lucy feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Rooster loaded some tools into a pickup truck. Grizz and Tiny climbed into the back. As Lucy got in the passenger seat, Rooster glanced at her. Your dad know you're here? No. He's gonna be pissed. I know. Rooster started the engine. Good. Means he's still got some fight in him. Moses was on the couch when they knocked, wearing sweatpants and an army t-shirt that had seen too many days without a wash. He'd managed to drag himself to the living room using the coffee table and chair backs, a journey of maybe 15 feet that left him exhausted. When Lucy opened the door with 3 bikers behind her, his face went from confusion to anger to something else entirely. Rooster stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, taking in the cramped apartment with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen plenty of hard times. Moses Albany, you got old. Moses stared. His mouth opened, closed. Rooster. Yeah, brother. Been a minute. They gripped hands, then pulled into an embrace that lasted longer than either probably intended. When they separated, Moses's eyes were wet. I heard you got out. Heard you were stateside, but... He shook his head. Man, I thought I'd never see you again. Takes more than a few roadside bombs to get rid of me. Rooster gestured to the others. You remember Grizz? Moses's laugh was genuine for the first time in weeks. The guy who couldn't change oil without getting it everywhere? Yeah, I remember. Grizz grinned. Learned from the best Sarge. The reunion lasted maybe half a minute before Moses's eyes found Lucy, and his expression hardened. What did you do? Dad, She came to us, Rooster interrupted. Asked for help, which is what you should have done months ago, stubborn bastard. Moses's jaw tightened. I don't need charity. Good thing we're not offering any. Rooster walked past him to the corner where the broken wheelchair sat, examining the cracked frame with the kind of focus Moses remembered from their deployment days. He ran his fingers along the split metal, tested the wheels, checked every weld point. Grizz and Tiny joined him, the 3 of them communicating in the wordless shorthand of people who'd worked together for years. Rooster straightened, wiping his hands. Frames compromised in 3 places. We could weld it, but you'd get maybe a month before it fails again. Moses's voice came out flat. Can't afford a replacement. They's got me on a wait list that stretches into next year. What if we built you something better? Moses laughed, bitter and tired. With what? Good intentions and spare parts. Actually, yeah. Rooster turned to Tiny. That softail frame we stripped last month. The one from the 98 we were gonna scrap for parts. Tiny's eyes lit up. The one with the bent forks? Frame's solid though. We pull that, reinforce it, add a proper seat. You're insane, Moses said. You can't turn a motorcycle into a wheelchair. Grizz was already sketching something on a napkin he'd found on the coffee table. Not a wheelchair. Something hybrid. Look, we take the frame, drop the seat height, add hand controls here and here. Small electric motor for assist, but keep it manual capable for reliability. Moses watched them work, saw the way they moved around each other, the familiar rhythm of mechanics solving a problem. He looked at Lucy, who stood by the door watching him with desperate hope in her eyes. His daughter had stolen for him, had walked into a biker garage alone because he'd been too broken to fix himself. "All right," he said quietly. "Show me what you've got in mind." The kitchen table became their drafting board. Notebook paper filled with sketches, arguments flying about weight distribution and where to mount the motor. Moses's hands moved over the drawings with muscle memory, adding modifications, pointing out problems, suggesting solutions. It was the most alive Lucy had seen him in months. By evening, they'd gotten Moses into the truck, Tiny's portable ramp making the loading almost dignified. The workshop looked different at night, work lights casting sharp shadows. The space transformed into something that felt almost sacred. The Harley frame sat on sawhorses in the center, already stripped down to bare metal. Rooster handed Moses a welding mask. "You still know how to run a bead? Like riding a bike." Moses's smile was crooked. No pun intended. They worked deep into the night, past midnight, past exhaustion. Moses directed from a rolling stool they'd found in the back, his mechanic's brain coming back online after months of forced retirement. Lucy sat in the corner, watching her father become himself again. Focused, precise, occasionally barking corrections when someone's weld wasn't clean enough. The next day after school, Lucy came straight to the garage. Rooster was grinding down welds, sparks flying. He killed the angle grinder when he saw her. "Homework done." "Not yet. Do it first. Then you can help." She spread her books on a workbench in the corner, rushing through math problems and a book report, glancing up every few minutes to watch the build take shape. When she finished, Rooster handed her a wrench. "You said you wanted to learn. Start with these bolts. Snug but not stripped. Feel the difference." 3 nights straight, the garage was their entire universe. Moses showed Lucy how to read measurements, how to check tolerances, the importance of doing things right even when you're tired. Grizz fabricated a hand crank system that connected to the rear axle, the motion smooth and natural. Tiny wired LED lights into the frame, then added flames down the sides because, as he said, "If we're building this thing, it should look badass." On the 3rd night, Smokey, a quiet member who usually worked alone, brought in a small electric motor. Scooter motor. Figured it might help on hills. They integrated it into the design, adding a thumb throttle and a battery pack under the seat. The machine grew from concept to reality piece by piece, weld by weld. It didn't look like a wheelchair anymore. It didn't look like a motorcycle either. It looked like something entirely new, steel and determination made solid. Rooster stepped back, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We need a name for this thing." Tiny grinned, gesturing at the flame details. "The Iron Throne." Everyone laughed, but the name stuck. It was perfect, ridiculous, and powerful at the same time. "Tomorrow," Rooster said, looking at Moses. "Tomorrow we roll it out and see if this crazy idea actually works." Sunday morning came clear and cold. Rooster called while the sun was still low. "We're bringing it over. Be outside in 20. Moses hadn't slept. His mind had run through every possible failure, motor dying, frame cracking, the whole thing looking impressive but changing nothing. But when Lucy knocked on his bedroom door, her face bright with anticipation, he pushed the doubts aside. Getting downstairs was its own battle. Grizz and Tiny had to carry him, his arms around their shoulders, his useless legs dragging between them. The humiliation of it burned, but neither man said a word. They just did what needed doing. Neighbors filled the parking lot. Mrs. Hudson from upstairs, the Rodriguez family, even Mr. Patterson who never acknowledged anyone. Word had spread somehow. Lucy bounced on her toes, scanning the street. Then she heard it, the rumble of engines, deep and unmistakable. Motorcycles rolled in first, flanking Rooster's pickup. In the truck bed, secured with tie-downs and covered with a tarp, was something that made the crowd go quiet. Rooster parked, killed the engine. The sudden silence felt heavy. "Ready?" Rooster asked. Moses shook his head. Do it anyway. Rooster and Grizz pulled the tarp off. The iron throne gleamed in the morning sun. Black frame with metallic orange flames. Chrome details catching the light. LED strips tracing the edges. It looked aggressive and purposeful, like it had been built for war. The seats sat low and wide, padded with black leather. Hand cranks extended from the sides like wings. The wheels were solid, fat, meant for any terrain. Moses stared. His throat worked, but no sound came out. They lifted him into the seat. The fit was perfect. They'd measured everything to his exact specifications during those late nights. The backrest supported his spine exactly where he needed it. The hand grips fell naturally under his palms. Rooster showed him the controls. Crank for manual power, thumb throttle for electric assist, brake levers on both sides. Try it, Rooster said simply. Moses gripped the cranks and pulled. The wheels turned smooth, silent, powerful. He rolled forward 10 feet. 20. The motion was effortless compared to his old chair, the gearing perfectly balanced. He circled the parking lot once, getting a feel for it, then hit the electric assist. The motor hummed to life, and suddenly he was moving faster than he'd moved in years. Wind in his face, freedom under his hands. He came back around to where Lucy stood, pulled to a stop in front of her. When he looked up, tears were streaming down his face. He reached for her and she climbed into his lap, both of them holding on like the world might try to pull them apart. Thank you, Moses whispered, but he was looking at all of them. Rooster, Grizz, Tiny, Smokey, the whole crew. I don't know how to. You already paid us back, Rooster said. Salerno 2010. You kept us alive. We're just returning the favor. Mrs. Hudson had her phone out. Her video captured Moses's face, Lucy's tears, the bikers standing back with crossed arms trying and failing to hide their own emotions. She posted it to Facebook that afternoon. By evening, shares were climbing into the hundreds. Monday morning brought news vans to the garage. Rooster hated every second of the interview. He stood in front of the camera, uncomfortable in the spotlight, giving short answers. We just helped out a brother. That's what you do. But the story had legs. Disabled veteran, desperate daughter, outlaw bikers building miracles from scrap metal. It was too good not to spread. By midweek, the story had made national headlines. Suddenly Rooster's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Producers, reporters, people wanting interviews, features, human interest segments. He turned them all down except one. A morning show that agreed to donate to a veterans charity if he appeared. The interview aired late in the week. Within days, something unexpected began. Emails poured into the garage's ancient website, messages through social media, even handwritten letters. Veterans from across the country, all telling variations of the same story. Broken equipment, endless wait lists, VA systems that move too slow or not at all. Could the Steel Cobras help them too? Rooster printed emails until the stack was thick enough to bind, spread them across the workbench. Grizz read over his shoulder, his expression darkening with each one. We can't build 300 of these. We don't have the money or the manpower. I know. Rooster stared at the messages like they were personally accusing him. But we can't just ignore this. Lucy was doing homework in her usual corner. She looked up. What if people donated? Like a fundraiser. Tiny snorted. Kid, this isn't a school bake sale. We're talking serious money. People donated after the news story though. Mrs. Hudson said her video got like 2 million views. Some of those people probably have money. Rooster turned to look at her. Really look at her. You're saying crowdfunding. I don't know what it's called, but people want to help. They just need someone to ask. Moses, who'd been working on improving the hand crank design, wheeled over. She's right. The story's already out there. People are already asking how they can help. We just need to give them away. The Throne Fund launched early in the week. Barebones website, simple pitch, costs laid out transparently. They needed $50,000 to see if this could work. Enough to build maybe 10 more chairs and see if the model could work. The page went live at noon. By evening, they'd hit the goal. By midnight, the number had climbed past 200,000. The number kept climbing, small donations from veterans, large checks from corporations wanting good PR, everything in between. Within a week, donations had surged past 2 million. The VA issued a carefully worded press release acknowledging the innovative community response, while declining to officially adopt the design due to regulatory compliance concerns. Rooster read it aloud in the garage, then crumpled the paper and threw it at the trash can. It bounced off the rim. "Screw 'em. We'll do it ourselves." And they did. Over the next year, the Steel Cobras built hundreds of custom mobility machines. They partnered with other clubs, shared blueprints, trained volunteers. Moses became lead consultant, his expertise finally valued again. Lucy came every Friday after school, being paid, half of it going into a college fund Rooster had opened in her name. The work was hard, unglamorous, never-ending. But every time a veteran rolled out of that garage with tears in their eyes and steel under their hands, it felt like winning a war nobody knew they were fighting. Lucy never stole again. She learned something better, how to build what the world refused to give. This story reminds us that loyalty isn't just a word, it's what we do when someone needs us most. Lucy didn't wait for a miracle. She went out and built one. What would you do for the person you love most? Drop your answer in the comments below. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to embrace the journey for more stories of courage, heart, and humanity. See you in our next video.